All right, welcome to Off-Road Observer. We're about to go on a run in a couple months with our Mid-South Jeep Club, and so I'm shooting some videos, doing some off-road basic series, and the first chapter is going to be about wheels and tires. It's tax season. Deals are everywhere. You got that tax money back, hopefully. Hopefully you don't have to pay. I had to do that one time. It was terrible. But anyway, so there's a lot of things you need to know, and so I'll show this on this video. So let's go over to Ducky and I'll show you some tires real quick. All right, your two main tire options for you to go off-roading is the all-terrain and the mud terrain. The all-terrain is a much quieter, less aggressive tire. It's definitely more aggressive than your stock tire, but it's quieter, it's a smoother ride, and for people that have long commutes, this could be a really good option for you. Now the mud terrain is going to be louder. It's also not going to last as long, but they have larger lugs and larger spaces of lugs that allows this tire to clean off. You also have the lugs on the side to create grip almost everywhere on this tire. Now the big thing I think about when it comes to all-terrains versus mud terrains is go back to a trip I made to Stony Lonesome 2 years ago. We had these all-terrains on this Jeep at that point in time, and it was muddy. It was this red clay mud, and these were utterly useless. That was the only trip we took that year off-roading, and it was not enjoyable at all. We were just waiting to get off the trails, and we just knew from then on we're going with the mud terrain. It's just about maximizing experience. Even though if you're just taking one or two trips, you want to make those one or two trips memorable and enjoyable. Now, yes, you're going to be compromising your daily driving performance with these, but I have mud terrains on and I've noticed really not much difference. They're louder, but you're going to have to compromise somewhere. And I rather, when I go out, get away from work, really enjoy my time and maximize that time. So mud terrains is what I'm going to go with every time, and what we've always been going with all the time. This is just a spare because we messed up one of the tires. Let's talk about tire size. This is a 33-inch tire. It's great for your TJs. You don't really have to do too much upgrading other than getting a lift to put a 33 on a TJ. For JKs, JLs, you should be able to fit this on pretty good. You might have to have some concerns about your clearance, but not much. And your drivetrain shouldn't have any problems at all with it. Now, I skipped and went to the 35-inch tire. This is a 35 by 12.5 by 17. 17 is the rim size, 12.5 is the width of the tire, and 35 is the height. Now, those are not the actual measurements of the tire, that's just how they sell them. Some brands are truer than others. Sometimes it's different between the different tire size. So when it comes to programming your Jeep, as I'll talk about later, you'll actually need to measure the actual tire size. The 35s, they fit somewhat nicely on this JL and also most JKs. But as you see, I really need some room. So I'm gonna look at getting a suspension lift. You can also get body lifts or cut some fenders or a combination of all those things just to get that clearance that you need. Now, 35 is a nice tire, but if you really want to do some hard trails, I recommend getting the 37, especially if you have an unlimited. Now, here's the thing with the 37 tire, you're getting bigger and bigger, so you're going to have to think about your whole drivetrain. You're going to have to figure out how to move these tires and slow these tires down. So you could be looking at not only getting a lift and adjusting fenders, but you're also thinking about correcting possibly your gear ratio. You're going to have to think about how strong your axles are. You're going to think about how strong your brakes are, and heck, you might end up having to get a drive shaft to move those axles and everything. So it's not just the amount of money you spend from a 35 to a 37-inch tire might seem not that big of a difference, but it is a big difference because you might have to correct so many other things just to get the performance you want out of it. So I'm going with the 35. I went with the Deegan 38s, Mickey Thompsons. We've had Mickey Thompsons before on the TJ, and this works out, and I have no problems with the Jeep as is, other than I need a lift. Um, but also I got it because I'm not going to do the harder trails. I got to pay this thing off, so I don't want to do anything too crazy. Of course, I went with the mud terrain also, so the life of this tire is not as long as an all-terrain. This is actually, from some of the reviews I've seen, lasts quite a, surprisingly a long time, more than I expected. But I gotta see. I'll let you know later on when I do an actual tire review how things are. But if you want to create more longevity with your tires, I recommend a 5-tire rotation. That means also rotating your spare tire. That will allow even tread throughout your tire, so when you do put your spare on, you don't have 4 tires that have thousands upon thousands of miles and then a spare that's never been touched. Also, one thing you need to have checked out is your alignment. You can do the redneck alignment and measure the front of your tire and the width of your tire, but it's hard to find good points on these crazy lugs, especially on the mud terrain. And you just basically want to make sure it's towed in. As you drive down the road, your tires are getting pulled out, so having it towed in at rest is what you're looking for. I recommend looking for a shop that has a lifetime alignment. I've been going to Firestone for years with all the vehicles I have and have lifetime alignments with them. Probably once I throw the lift on this in a few weeks, I'm gonna go take this down to my friend's Firestone and get that done and get the lifetime alignment on this thing. All right, let's see what tools you need for tires and wheels. This is kit. Most of this stuff I put in actually my recovery bag and a side pouch of it. I keep my recovery bag behind my seat, somewhere where I can actually reach it. You don't want to put this like in a tailgate, especially recovery gear, because sometimes opening and closing your tailgate might cause a bigger problem than you're already in. So just have this in reach when you're out on the trails is a great idea. First, you can get a tire patch kit. This is actually one for just like bikes and stuff. But they actually make ones for automotive tires. I've never really used one before, but some people do. I've used this a lot more, which is the tire plug kit. My dad's a paint contractor, so I've driven over quite a few nails and screws in my lifetime. Basically, the kit comes with these 2 tools. One will make the hole bigger. The other will thread your plugs into, so you can pull it out. Push it in and pull it out so the plug stays. They either come with the screwdriver handles, but I prefer the T handles. They just allow a little more force. It's very difficult to get those plugs in, and to help get the plugs in and help them stay in, a rubber cement is very good. It will act as that lubricant. You can also get a lubricant to throw it in there, because some people don't like how this rubber cement dries out very quickly. Also, after you plug or patch a tire, you need to have soapy water to just check while you inflate, to make sure any bubbles come up. It will tell you this air is still leaking out. So having just a little travel tube of soapy water is a good idea. And of course, whatever's in your tire, you need to get out. So have some pliers, just regular pliers or some needle nose pliers will do the trick most of the times. I like this. It gives you a little bit more leverage with the hook, but sometimes some needle nose pliers for even the smaller nails might be better. But I've used pliers all the time, and I found it being a lot easier to use. Now, of course, you need a tire gauge. Check your PSIs. When you go off-roading, you're going to be airing down your tires. Normally on the streets, you're generally in the range of over 30 PSI. Good PSI for off-roading to start off with is 15. Now you can adjust that as you go through the trails. If you need a more softer ride, lower it down. Now you don't want to lower it too far down. That's why some people run bead locks. Those things can go down to like 8, and some people go lower than 8 PSI on those. But for your regular wheels, 15 is a good start off. Start off with 15 and it adjusts as you go. And in order to get there, you need to deflate your tires. Now you can just take a stick and or something to poke it and get the tire released. But if you want to do something quicker, getting a tire deflator is a great idea. This is a rapid deflator. You can also get the ones where it comes in 4 packs, where you screw on and you actually set that, and you'll have to set that and test it out a few times. And you also want to make sure that whatever setting you have it on is correct. You can easily, like, most of them have an adjustable nut on there, and if you accidentally adjust it, or at some point, or your buddy accidentally does it because he wants to go lower, just double check before you just take them off and go. Now this tire deflator actually will pull out your valve core. Basically, when you screw it in, it will screw in, and you pull it out, and it will allow the tire to deflate a lot faster. But that's one reason why you should always carry in some extra valve cores. This is a valve core tool with extra valve cores, just in case something happens with it. You need to have it replaced. It's a good thing to have. Also, one thing that I don't have that I need to get, I just bought some new wheels, so I need to make sure the fitment, because I went to the store and they had like different size, tire valves. Get the tire valve replacements for you, because that I've heard it quite a few times where somebody's knocked off that tire valve, and having one, or somebody having one, has saved a trip very quickly. Also, what you need to do when you're doing repairs, you might be doing this at night, so having a good flashlight is very key. You can use your rock lights. Sometimes the rock lights are so far in the wheel wells that it really doesn't do the trick. This is a cat. It's magnetic. The only problem was with the JL, almost everything's either plastic or aluminum, so there's nowhere magnetic. But I can put this on my shirt, or somehow, and it puts out quite a bit of light. I really love this thing. I'm gonna, like $10. I'm gonna buy more of these things. I love them. Of course, when you're changing your tires, you need to make sure you have the right lug key. Of course, if your vehicle, like my JL, started out with a lug key lock, so make sure you have the lock and key. And one thing is, I didn't know where this was when I was switching out wheels recently, so now I'm going to keep this in this pocket so I know exactly where it is. Of course, you need some type of lug wrench. This just came with my stock lug wrench, and it does the trick. Also, another tool that I keep in there in my toolkit, just because it's all tire tools, it's a tire tread gauge. This will tell you how much tread you have left, kind of like the end of a caliper, and good to check to make sure you have even tread throughout your tires. I'm going to do this since I got new tires and see where they are, and so I can give a good review later on. Now, of course, when you deflate the tires, you need to have some way of inflating the tires. One way is using a compressor. Another way is you can also use a CO2 tank. Now, with the compressor, you'll need to get some power from your battery. This just hooks up onto your battery and runs it. You can also run it through your wiring system. Another option is going with a CO2 tank. CO2 tanks are a little bit different. One, you don't need power. Number two, you're only limited to how much CO2 is in that tank, whereas this thing's always, as long as you have power, going to run and add more air to your tire. But a CO2 tank, one thing you need to do is when it's full, weigh it up, put that weight on it, and also a lot of times they'll have a tare weight on it. It should, but if once it's empty, weigh it again, so you kind of have an idea what it's empty and what it is full. Now, and that's really the only way you can tell how much air, how much CO2 you have left in your tank. So just weigh it before you go on your trip, and you should be fine. Now, all these stuff can fix most situations, but sometimes you can't fix a situation. And a lot of people do not run a spare tire. I do, and I always will do. I've had situations where I've messed up more than one tire at times, to the point where I can't even fix it. We recently came back from a trip, and this thing got stuck in the tire, and luckily we had the spare. We switched it out and it was fine, but when we went to see if anyone could fix the tire, they said they couldn't. This thing went all the way in, even to this thicker part. So having a spare tire is just a great idea. I know a lot of people just don't do it. there's no excuses. You want to be able to get home and not ruin everybody else's trip because you didn't bring a spare tire. So this is what I keep on my kit. I keep it where I can grab it. I'm also going to show you some jacks to help you jack up your rig. This is a good kit to start off with. If there's anything else I'm missing, just let me know, put in the comments, and I'll see if I can update the video later. Alright, let's talk about jacks. So we have 3 different options here. First, we have the spring jack. This comes with your vehicle. This is from my JL. It's nice that you put this underneath the axle and just twist this up with this this hook and extension. One thing I like about this is it has a long extension, so you're not underneath the vehicle. The only problem is once you start getting bigger tires, you need something to lift it up more. I just recently bought this bottle jack. This will go up about 17 inches. The 8 tons, 6 tons generally will get that height. Something smaller than that might not be best. I mean, you can probably lift something up with a 4-ton jack, but it might not give you the height that you need. Now, the only issue I have with it, as I showed you this being so long, it generally comes with something this short. So you might be underneath the vehicle doing this. So having something like a galvanized pipe, or this is actually what I keep that is from my hydraulic jack, is the extension from it. I just take the nut out, and what I can do is I can slip that on and stay from, keep from being underneath the vehicle and jacking it up. Also, I can throw a wrench on this if I need some more strength and leverage. It's something good to have. And if you have a wrench, don't get the ones with the comfort handles. Then otherwise you can't create the leverage with like a steel pipe or a hydraulic extension like that. One thing you need to do is when you're jacking up using these jacks is you're going to be pushing up against the vehicle to the ground. The ground may be soft. I ran into this situation when that part I showed you got stuck in the tire, and we ended up using this because she forgot this and left this at home, and this started sinking immediately. So having some type of platform, 2x6 is good enough. I forgot to take this with me. I ended up using a cast iron skillet. It worked. It was probably not the best idea. I was nervous while I was jacking up the Jeep, but it worked. Also, the other option is these high lift jacks. High lift is actually the company. A lot of people call these farm jacks. They're generally made out of cast iron. Sometimes the cheaper ones will have steel right here, but this is safe to use if you know what you're doing and understand where the pinch points are and how the mechanics work, so you can work it safely. So learn how to use this thing before you go out on the trail. Also, you need to maintain this using some WD-40 to clean it and also grease it up. When I found this in the storage room, the thing was stuck at the top, and it took me quite a bit of time to get the mechanics so I could get it down. Another thing about this is you can use this for different things. You can use it to push things apart or pull things, almost using a winch. You can use it as a come along. So there's different options you can use with this. It's a very popular thing to do. You see it mounted on vehicles, and that's the other thing is you got to find a way of mounting this thing. It's very big. I gotta find a place to hide this, but a place to put this thing, I might have to buy something in order to put it on my inside or outside of my Jeep. Now the thing is, you have it on the outside of the Jeep, you might want to think about getting some type of cover so this thing doesn't rust, and or make sure you keep it, do some maintenance on it regularly. But these are the different options you can use to jack up the vehicle. Now this is for jacking up a vehicle and changing a tire really quickly. If you're going to leave a vehicle jacked up for a long period of time, you need to use a jack stand, some type of fixed jack stand. I recommend a 6-ton because it gives you a lot more height than a 3-ton. But don't get underneath a vehicle with these things, with only these things keeping your vehicle lifted. Have a jack stand there to keep your vehicle nice and steady and so it doesn't fall on you. Alright, wheels, they come in different shapes and sizes. So this is a 15-inch rim and this is a 17-inch. This will fit on a TJ, but this will not fit on a JL. This is actually a JL stock rim. This is 17 inches. Because of the larger brake system, you have to have at least a 17 on there. So that's one thing you need to think about when you're buying wheels and tires, is make sure you have that correct diameter. Another thing you need to think about is the lug pattern. Now I'm going to use this spacer as an example. This is a 5-on-4-5 lug pattern, and I know this because I checked it. Basically, all I had to do was take one lug, measure the outside of that lug, and then skip one lug to the next one, and right there in the middle of that lug is 4.5. So this is a 5-on-4.5, so there's 5 lugs on a 4.5 spacing, skipping that one lug. Another thing about lugs is all lugs can be different. Some are M14, some are M12, so they have different torque values. So when you put your wheels on your Jeep and start tightening up the lug nuts, you want to torque them to spec. A lot of people say 100 is good, but look at find out what particular lugs need that particular torque, and make sure you do that, because you don't want them too tight, and you definitely don't want them too loose. This is actually one thing you can do is, if you this 5-on-4-5 fits most TJs. On JKs and JLs, they do the 5-on-5 pattern. Now, if you want a 5-on-5, if you like a wheel that's 5-on-5 and want to put on TJ, you can get an adapter that looks kind of like this, but the lugs, you'll have places where you can take the 5-on-4-5 lugs, put it on, and then these things will actually adapt to a 5-on-5 pattern. This is actually a wheel spacer. That is another very important part of buying tires. When you're buying, a lot of off-road tires are wider, like that 12.5 I told you about. So you need to think about the back spacing of it. And the back spacing basically is the number, if you measure from the outside to this part where it hits the rotor, and that number is your back spacing. There's also numbers like offset. Offset is just how much is it offset from the middle of the rim. But most of the time, back spacing is the term that it's easy to think about and understand. So you can just reuse like a stock rim and create back spacing with a spacer like that. Just gotta make sure you check and make sure everything's torqued good throughout, which you should probably do anyway, no matter what, whether you're using a spacer or not. Now, wheels come in different options as far as material goes. You have aluminum and steel. Steel are generally a lot cheaper, around $60 to $150 a wheel, whereas aluminums, I got mine for $100 on a great deal, but most of the time they're $200 to $300, if not more. Depends on how ornate it is. Aluminum wheels are going to be super ornate, whereas a steel wheel is going to be very simple. Just circles and triangles. One thing nice about the steel wheel is you can, if you bend it, you can bend it back. Well, it takes you a while with a hammer, but you can do it. Whereas aluminum wheel, when this bends, it cracks, and you can't shape it back. Now, the steel wheels will bend a lot easier than aluminum wheels, so it's kind of what do you want in that situation. A lot of people that go into remote situations prefer the steel wheel just because they can fix a steel wheel. I've been in a situation where I almost messed up two wheels on one trip, so just having one spare might not fix your problem. You might have to take a hammer to a steel wheel. This is not steel, but anyway. Also, the steel wheels can be heavier than aluminum wheels unless the aluminum wheels are super ornate. The difference is not too much, but you multiply that by 4, the 4 wheels that you have on your vehicle, it becomes expensive. Just like you multiply 4 by the price, that becomes expensive too, or heavy and expensive. Let's see. Also, another thing when you're buying wheels and tires is you might not be able to reuse your lug nuts, So make sure you know what type of lug nuts you need for your particular wheel. And also, a lot of times the wheels don't come with center caps. So make sure you ask some questions. Sometimes you have to read the fine print saying, oh, you need this lug and this center cap sold separately. So watch out for that when you're buying wheels and tires. All right, now you've bought like bigger wheels and tires. You need to be able to tell your vehicle that you did and put on bigger tires. Otherwise, your odometer, your speedometer, your transmission just doesn't understand that you put a different size tire on your vehicle. So you need some type of programmer. Basically, this is the Super Chips one. This one actually it comes with a bypass, which is in the vehicle right now, which bypasses some wires inside the vehicle, and I plug this into the was it ODB sensor? Is that correct? I get those letters wrong a lot of times. You plug this in and you turn on the vehicle without turning on the ignition, and it powers this up, and it allows you to tell it what your tire size is, if you change your gears, what your new gear ratio is. Some better ones can do all kinds of like light shows and all kinds of craziness. These things can range even from $200 to $500, and they're all different. One thing with this one is you need to make sure you measure the actual tire size. So you need to get a tape measure and measure that diameter, and don't just put 35 in there, because 35 might actually, it might be what's on the sidewall, but it actually might not be what actually it is. So you need to put the actual number in a lot of times to make sure it settles the correct odometer, the correct speedometer, your shift points, everything. It makes your vehicle run a lot better, and also you don't have to worry about getting pulled over by cops because you're not sure exactly how fast you're going. This one in particular will also read codes. One thing when you're reading codes, make sure you read the fine print of codes. I read a code one time on one of my cars, and it said, oh, you have this coolant valve that you need to get replaced. It was a $70 part, and I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. Next thing you know, I ended up destroying a $2,000 transmission because I didn't replace that $70 part. I was told this, I just didn't read the fine print that was included with the code that was given. So make sure when you get codes, you read them correctly. And but hey, let's now have some fun time with those new tires. All right.